This is really about democracy and about our relationship with our government. Are we servants of those who have grabbed control of the government of the United States? Will money rule, or will the people through a democratic process rule? And part of this has to do with our own relationship with our own member of Congress. And that's what I'd really love to talk with you about. Anna has a handout which, because it's so important, and it's so important that no one leave without it, she's going to pass it out to you right now. I just happen to have a copy, which I think is very important, and that has a list of almost certainly your member of Congress in the House and phone numbers. And that's where you come in, one of the many ways that you come in. Because if we simply go home and say, wow, that was a good event, and we don't follow through, then our voices are not going to be heard. They're not going to be heard loudly and insistently, which is the only way that they'll make a difference. Now let's be really candid about this aspect of the politics of the moment. The majority of the House and Senate, obviously, as Republicans, are not leaning towards impeachment at this time, to put it mildly. There are, of course, many members of the House, which is where impeachment can take place under the Constitution, who are Democrats. And yet we know, it has been reliably reported, that the minority leader, and some of you, anybody live in San Francisco and have Nancy Pelosi as your representative? Okay. She is representing you, and as the minority leader, the head Democrat in the House of Representatives at this time, the word has gone forth from her, that impeachment is not to come from the lips in any serious way of any Democrat in the House of Representatives. Why is that? Well, she said after Donald Trump took office that if he does anything illegal, then it might be the right time to broach that issue of impeachment. Wow. Now, there's a little thing called the supreme law of the land, also known as the Constitution of the United States. And as John just pointed out, from the moment that Donald Trump became president, he has been in violation of two key clauses of that Constitution, known as emoluments clauses, also as the foreign and domestic corruption clauses. So this is where the conflict comes in between theory and practice. Because in theory, what we were taught in civics class, what we came really, I think, very sincerely to believe, is that democracy necessarily will require that no one is above the law. That if anybody, and least of all is it acceptable when the person in the highest and most powerful position of the US government is functioning outside of the law, that is totally unacceptable. And that would lead us, if we accept it, down a pathway towards absolute tyranny. And this is the crossroads that we're at this historic moment. It's not just theoretical, it's very practical, it's very real. It's very real in the way that we have a president who is fundamentally, methodically, outrageously violating central precepts of the supreme law of the land. And the expedient way, according to those who are accepting and embracing the directive that has come from the head of the Democrats in the so-called opposition party in the House, the implicit assumption is that the law can be ignored. The supreme law of the land can be ignored because there are certain political calculations that must take precedence. How dangerous is that? What kind of government can we foresee in the future if every response to a flagrant violation of the Constitution by the president is, well, now is not the time? Wow. It is always the time to oppose tyrannical actions by people at the top of our government, because if we don't oppose those tyrannical actions, then the slippery slope continues to slide. And if we extrapolate from here, what if there were to be passivity? What if there were to be tacit or overt acceptance of this president using his business interests, his individual acquisitiveness, to put it mildly, some might call it quite justifiably greed? What if it were to be said, well, that's okay? Then the consolidation of business interests, of wealth, with the top policy making of the executive branch of this government, what do we call that? There are some words when business is merged with government. There are some very ugly words. There are some ugly precedents in history. Some have called it fascism. Some have called it other words. But down that road, if we allow this country to continue to travel it, that is the end point. Where, as the cliche goes, the rubber meets the road is where we live. As a former leader in Congress said, all politics is local, and whether that's quite exactly true, it's largely true. We all have a representative in Congress, and unless we live in the colony of Washington, D.C., we all have a voting representative of Congress. But if we don't avail ourselves of this possibility, then we are going to be in some way passively accepting what is flagrantly and totally unacceptable. So in closing, I want to ask you to do a couple things. We still got some weekdays left in this week. There's no time like the president. I'm old enough to remember, was it Buffalo Bob? Never put off till tomorrow what you can do today. Never put off till Thursday what you can do on Wednesday. Never put off to Wednesday what you can do on Tuesday, which I believe, if my memory serves, is tomorrow. So this is a shortcut. You don't even gotta go and Google around or whatever. You've got here the names and the phone numbers, both the district office or the Washington, D.C. Capitol office of your representative to the U.S. House of Representatives. And given to time zones, given to the reality of time zones, you've got a big window tomorrow. You're an early bird, 6 a.m., you get up, you can call the Capitol switchboard. There's going to be a live person at your congressional office staff to answer your call. All the way to 5 p.m. when the offices, the district offices, will still be there. So that's very important. It's something everybody can do, but that's not all you can do by any means. On the very question of approaching members of the House, you can contact, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever means of communication online you have, listservs, everybody you know, send along the information. Urge them to go to impeachdonaldtrumpnow.org. Urge them to go ahead and call their representatives and urge their friends to call their representatives. And finally, in this particular avenue, something that we can all do is insist that as constituents, we would like a meeting. We would like to make an appointment in the district office with our representative to discuss this very grave threat to democracy that's in our midst. I have a feeling that there are quite a few people in this room who live in Berkeley, California, USA, planet Earth. Am I right? 24 hours from now, there may be a historic action just a few blocks from here. Because tomorrow night, the Berkeley City Council has the opportunity, and it's on their agenda, to approve a resolution and thereby be the largest city in the United States to approve a resolution in favor of the impeachment of President Donald Trump. And it's very important for people who live in Berkeley to go to that meeting, urge your friends and neighbors to go to that meeting, and have your voice be heard. And I think Pastor Mike made it so clear, so crystal clear, that when and only when people lead, can and will the leaders follow. And that's our opportunity, to see to it that they're not going to do it on their own. We're going to have to drag them. We're going to have to entice them. Whether it's kicking and screaming or gladly, they will need to be led along the path towards impeachment. You can do it, we can do it, and let's move forward. Thank you.